Welcome back to Got Wire. I'm Adam, and today I have a 3D printed Raspberry Pi 5 NAS that I found on YouTube. I'll link the YouTuber's channel down below. I believe he made these files himself, and he used a Bamboo Labs A1 3D printer, and that's the same one I have. So I'll try to link the 3D print files down in the description. So if you guys want to print this, you can. It takes about 24 hours for the whole thing to print because it prints in two pieces. That's why there's these lines here. And the reason why it's black and gray is because I ran out of black, so I just printed the middle part in gray. But you can pick whatever colors you want. It has 4 drive bays, and then in the back you can see where the Raspberry Pi 5 goes. You can put a fan in the back, so I ordered this fan here. Like I said, I'll have everything linked down in the description. And then this is a Penta SATA hat for the Raspberry Pi 5. It gives you 4 SATA and power connections. So you put that on top of the Raspberry Pi 5 in there, and then you use this extension cable to go to the bracket that you 3D print that the drives plug into. You have to order a separate power cable for this hat that plugs into it. And this is a 12 volt 4 amp power adapter. I'll link it down in the description. I got some assortment of nuts and bolts. 2.5 gig Ethernet adapter, USB-C to Ethernet, so you can get 2.5 gig on this versus the integrated 1 gig on the Raspberry Pi 5. And I'll break this apart here and show you all the parts and show you how I partially assembled it. I gotta finish assembling it. I'll probably do that in like a time lapse or just show you little bits as I go. And funny story, when I was 3D printing the drive cages up here, I had to do it like 4 times. And one of the times, I'll try to show a picture of it either up here or up here, I got a wart of plastic on the end of my 3D printer and it completely bricked, and I had to melt all the plastic off and break it off, and I ordered a new tip and bed plate because it destroyed my tip. But I finally got everything 3D printed. So this is what it looks like on the inside. This is the bracket that holds all these SATA connections. It has 2 little divots. I just used some nuts and bolts to secure it. I took my screwdriver and angled it in at the screw and just turned it like that. And the video that I linked down below are a long Allen key and put an insert in the plastic and turned it, but all my inserts I ordered were too small, so I'm using nuts and bolts on all this. And then this right here is a right angle adapter. You want it to not be a right angle adapter. You want this to be straight up and down so you can plug it into the board. And then in the back you can see where that fan goes, and to keep the cords from hitting the fan, at 3D printed this fan shroud. As you can see, my nozzle started to mess up there, but this should still work. And then the drive cages, it prints you a washer. I just put a screw there with some bigger threads, and then this is what prints, and that's how you can pull out the drive. And then it has holes there. You just put screws on the side, and then you have this. So when you slide it in, obviously this isn't the right side. And this is what the inside of it looks like. It has grooves for your drive trays. And then it all screws together with 2 screws here. I'm gonna have to try to find some inserts or some bigger screws and just thread the screws into the plastic. Because like I said, all my inserts I bought are too small. And these look like this because I used a countersink to try to get the screw to sit flush. That way, when I put these 2 halves together, it actually sits flush when you put the 2 halves together. And then in his video on his 3D print file, he did this for the power and made a custom power plug, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna have to end up cutting this because, well, the plug will get in there, but the strain relief, it won't fit in all the way. So I'm just gonna cut it and solder the wires back together. But I'm gonna get started putting this all together. Well, I get the fan mounted up. I just gotta put a nut on that. And this right here, like I said, protects the cables from hitting the fan. And that's what it looks like on the back. I don't really care that I can see those screws. I guess I could have countersunk them to make them sit more flush. Next step is I'm gonna be getting the Raspberry Pi 5 mounted in here, and then the way I'm gonna hook up this fan, it just uses a regular 3-pin fan header. I have this adapter to go from 3-pin fan to Molex, and on this hat there's a Molex connector there, so I'm gonna plug it up to a Molex connector. And then the power cable plugs into here. So in order to get the Raspberry Pi 5 mounted, it has some holes in here, and I'm gonna use my soldering iron and heat those nuts up and melt them into the plastic. So I can put these that came with the hat through the holes and then attach the hat to the standoffs. So the soldering iron here, I will heat it up and melt it into the plastic. And then on the inside, it has standoffs. You stick the Pi on there, then you take your bolt, and it goes like that. Well, I got all the inserts put in here, and then I pushed the Raspberry Pi 5 into there. I got the standoff screwed in, and then this right here, you just connect your PCI cable, and then this will flip, and then that'll flip on top, and then you just secure your bolt onto that standoff, and then start plugging in all your extension cables. And that's what it looks like on the back. You have your I/O Ethernet port, and then you have the power hole. Well, I got the Raspberry Pi 5 mounted in here. I'd use those because I guess these standoffs, the screws that came with it were too small, but I got it all mounted in here. And now all I have to do is load the operating system onto the card, and I'll show you guys how to do that here in a minute. Well, on the power cable, I got lucky. I was able to just push it right up to that hole, and it was able to plug in there. And then I ordered the wrong cables, but that's fine. Well, I don't hook up two hard drives. So now all I have to do is mount this in the case, put the hard drives in, and then put the front on and secure it with screws. I bought the wrong inserts. They're too small. So I'm gonna use these thick screws, put them like that, and just make my own threads. So I just Google search Raspberry Pi installer, and then they have their own installer that you can use to flash your operating system to your little micro SD card here. I'm just using a micro SD card to USB-A adapter. So down here on the screen, click on download for Debian or Ubuntu. Since I'm using Pop! OS, in your case you're probably using Windows, it'll pop up Windows. You just download this installer, and then once it downloads, click on it, install, type in your password, and boom, there you go. So now we're going to plug in our drive, click on choose device, we're doing Raspberry Pi 5, choose operating system, Raspberry Pi OS other, and then you click on Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64. And then you choose your storage. In my case, I'm going to choose this generic storage device, 32 gigs. And then we're hit next, we'll hit edit settings, and then this is where you can set your host name, username, password, and if you want SSH credentials. I'm going to go ahead and set up all that real quick. So we got all that set up. You just hit the two check marks, enable SSH, and then we'll hit save, hit yes for sure, and then type in your sudo password and wait for it to get done. Alright, I'm sure as you can hear, this thing is very loud. So I got my external mic, so hopefully the sound of this doesn't affect the audio too much. I'm sorry if it does, but I'm definitely gonna have to install some Noctua fan resistors to get this fan to quiet down because it's running at like 100% right now. But anyways, to find the Pi's IP address, I think Raspberry Pi has some tools you can use, but I use Ubiquiti, so I just brought up the switch that I plugged it into, and it's on port 3, and after it booted up, it told me the IP address, which is right here. So I run Pop! OS, so I SSH'd into it using Pop! OS, and then the first thing you do is you update it, so sudo sudo update, and then sudo upgrade, and then after you do that, you run a command to pull this up to activate the PCI Express port, because by default the PCI Express port is not turned on the Raspberry Pi 5, but I'll try to link in the description the website I'm referring to for all these commands, that way you guys can do it, follow along if you're doing it too. So I had to add this to turn on the PCI Express port, so we'll hit Control-0, enter, and then Control X, and that was the command here that I used to bring that up. And then as you can see up here, this is all that it ran when I updated it. You just run sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. And now we'll do sudo reboot, and then now we just have to wait for it to reboot, and hopefully when it turns on, it'll have an active PCI Express port. We'll be able to see those two 4TB hard drives. Now this is OpenMediaVault 6, so the admin credentials are admin and OpenMediaVault. So if we click on storage here and go to disks, there's our two disks right there. So we're going to combine these two disks together using this, I'm not even begin to try to pronounce that, plus SnapRAID. And the way you do that is to go to System, Plugins, and we have to download a plugin. You're going to search for this, OpenMediaVault Merge FS. Click on that, install, confirm, yes, and wait for that to install. So now we go to storage, Merge FS. You have to hit the plus sign here for create. Name it, we'll do YouTube. You can name it whatever you want. Key important part on here is when you go to storage and you go to your file system, you have to hit the check mark up here once you make a change to make these two mounted. And then now you can go to Merge FS, hit plus sign up here, name it YouTube or whatever you want to name it. File system, we're going to check both these. So now we just hit save down here, created a pool, and then up here pending configuration changes, make sure you hit the apply check mark because that's what I forgot to hit earlier. So once that's made, you have to click on storage, and then you click on shared folders, then you hit the create button. button. We'll name it YouTube again. You name it whatever you want. So we'll click on the YouTube here, hit save, hit apply changes, hit yes. And we'll just go YOLO. Normally you can do a RAID 1 and make it so it has a redundant, but it looks like it just combined both of them together for the full 8 terabyte. I'm not to install anything important on here, but you guys could make it RAID 1 and have redundancy, but I'm just combining them both together for the max storage since I only have 2 hard drives. Now we have to make an SMB share, so we'll go to services, SMB, click on shares, let the add create button, select your folder. I'm just going to click on YouTube. So once you get all that done, you hit save, and then up top, make sure you hit the check mark to apply, and then next we'll have to make a user for the share. So we'll click on users here on the left, users, we already have a user Adam, make sure you apply the changes. Now we have to go to storage, shared folders, edit YouTube. Instead of hitting the edit, you click on permissions, give Adam and both Adam read write access, we'll hit save, apply changes, yes, and now we can access the share over our network, and you log in with your credentials, so in my case Adam and then the password I just made. So we'll try to set that up here. And one last thing before it will work, you have to make sure SMB is turned on. So it wasn't turned on, so I was having trouble mounting it. You go to services, SMB, settings, you hit enabled, and then you hit save. And once it's turned on, then you can go to your users, user, click on your user here, edit, and make sure it has a password, which we already did. You can go to your storage, shared folders, YouTube, click on permissions, make sure your user has read write, and then in Pop! OS, the easiest way to do it is you go to other locations and you type in your server IP. So in this case, I had it copied, so we'll just hit paste here. You do SMB : / your IP or your PI or your SMB, do another slash, and then you do your share. I named mine YouTube, so you type in whatever you named yours, hit connect, and it'll prompt you to type in your username and password, and then you just leave it as work group. And since I already typed in mine, it has a folder empty here. So these are the files that I've made here recording this video. So I'll click here and drag this over, and they're not that big of files, but as you can see, they're all in here now. So if I click on YouTube, all my files are now stored on that NAS. And then we can also make a new folder, we can delete the folder, so we have read write access. So it's a little bit complicated, but it's kind of fun since you made it all yourself. Yeah, you could just buy a store-bought NAS and it'd be plug and play, but if you're like me and you like to mess around with stuff, this is really fun. Alright, for you Windows users here, the way you map it is you open up your file explorer, hit the lines here, you go to map network drive, assign it whatever letter you want. You do the 2 backslashes like the example. You type in your IP address of your PI. In my case, it's .4.36. And then type in whatever you named it. In my case, I named it YouTube. Connect using different credentials. I'm going to type in Adam and my super secret password. Hit OK, and boom, there it is. So I put this file on here earlier. It's a 34 gig file. Move it to my desktop, and it's uploading it to my desktop at 2.5 gig roughly. I have a 2.5 gig USB adapter, so it's pretty fast. Just being spinning disks, they're 7200 RPM NAS hard drives, so it's pretty fast reading from it. So all in all, I really had fun making this project. I learned a lot. That hat on there was actually the second hat that I bought, because the first one I broke it, so I had to return it, and I ordered me a new one. So be real careful with that PCI Express ribbon cable. I was trying to plug up the fan because I forgot to plug it up, and while I was taking it apart, I broke the ribbon cable and the connection. So those are really delicate. And don't be like me and get the right inserts that are the right size, because these screws here, they work, but they're really big. And that 2.5 gig USB to RJ45 adapter came in really handy. I would definitely suggest buying that if you plan on building this. And I'll have all the links down below in the description, the links to 3D print files, and the link to the original video that gave me this idea to build my own, and also the link to the website that tells you the commands of how to get the PCI Express turned on the Raspberry Pi and how to install OpenMediaVault. But if you're thinking about doing this yourself, I'd probably just go with an all-in-one solution from like Ugreen or Synology. Maybe not Synology, but it'd probably be cheaper to buy all-in-one versus doing this yourself, especially if you don't have any of the stuff like a 3D printer or a Raspberry Pi 5 sitting around. But I'm probably not going to keep any of this. I'm probably going to return it. I just did this for the fun of it to see how hard it was to install OpenMediaVault and see how hard it was to get a SMB share going with it. And the enclosure looks kind of cool, so I'll probably keep the enclosure and throw something small on it that I already have. But if you guys think I should have done something different, or if you think you're gonna go out and try this, go ahead and leave a comment down below. While you're down there, hit that like button and that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. It'd really help me out a whole lot. And I also have a Discord down below, so if you do build something, go ahead and post it in Discord. I'll definitely see it and reply to you. And I have a couple other members in there right now. There's no membership thing that you have to go through. Just click the link and you're in there. But that's all I have for today. I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.